And we're live. Uh, Hello, everyone out there on the interwebs. We are missing our normal facilitator, Rebecca, for some reason. Um, we'll see if she joins late, but in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm going to share the YouTube stream to the Facebook group real quick. But thank you for joining us, whether you are watching live or on the replay. More than likely on the replay if you're watching. Sorry. This is why I don't normally lead these things. Anyway, yes, like I was saying, thank you for watching. We always interact with audience when we have it. So if you have any thoughts to share, you can comment them on the live stream and we will be able to see that and engage with you. So if you happen to be watching. Otherwise, if you're watching the replay, you can always comment there and we will get notified and share your thoughts that way. We are Dragonfly Arts and Creatives Collective, and we are a dedicated group of artists and creative people just helping each other out to navigate the world of art. So if that resonates with you, come join us. We are on Facebook. I will share the link so that you can join in. There it is. So that's our Facebook group. If you are on Facebook, you should join us there because we chat and we have weekly meetings for support and we share what we're working on. We share inspiration and resources and tools and stuff. It's really fun. We also share information about these monthly clubs, or these multimedia clubs. We have 2 monthly clubs, movie club, and this one, music listening. And those happen every month. And then we have a quarterly book club. And the new club picks will be posted very soon because those go up at the beginning of the month, and this month is almost over. We also have a Patreon. You are free to watch anything that we produce absolutely for free. The thing is, it is not free for us to produce. So if you would like to support us, we appreciate all the help we can get. And you can support us at any tier starting at $2 a month. And we really appreciate it. So with that being said, I don't have any slides for us today because normally Rebecca prepares that. But this month for Music Listening Club, we listened to the Dixie Chicks and their 1999 album Fly. So we're going to go ahead and just start the discussion. First of all, I know, Miguel, you mentioned that you already had a favorite song from this album picked out. So which one was it?
Oh, we're going to lead with that.
Yeah.
This is so much my favorite song that if anybody doesn't like the same song I liked, I'm not sure we can be friends. But it's the Goodbye Earl song. I just say just the comedic and all of the elements of it. I just think that the song's awesome.
I would have to agree with you. That is also one of my favorites.
And a guy wrote it, which is interesting.
A guy wrote it?
Yeah, a gentleman. I forget his name, but it's on the wiki. It was interesting that they apparently this is their second big label album. This was their second album with the big label, and I guess they didn't write anything on their first album. So the thing that's notable is that they wrote some tunes on it, but it's like very few tunes. They did some co-writes, and so I was kind of surprised. I figured they were doing more writing at this point, but still an awesome album.
They do a lot of their own songwriting, don't they? Or they did?
Just not on this album.
Okay.
And I think they did less on the album before, which was their first major label album. What I read on the wiki page, at least. Yeah, and they do write. I have a Natalie Main's solo album from about 10, 15 years ago, and I'm assuming she wrote most of the stuff on that, although there were some covers. But yeah, and the reason, for those of you listening, the reason that's interesting is because I never have a favorite song on any album we've done so far. It's either hard to pick or whatever. But I got one, so yay.
Yeah, and you can see the track listing over here. I just have the Wikipedia page open since I don't have any slides. Yeah, did you like the album?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I was telling um, Rebecca, and maybe I mentioned it to you. Like when I was in a country dance band before COVID, we played three or four Dixie Chicks tunes because we had the strength of that band was the singing, the lead singing and background singing. We had three lead singers, two males and a female, and we would always we depending on the set, we would always do Some Days You Gotta Dance, and then sometimes there was others from other albums that we would throw in. But they're always great tunes, and yeah,
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 I will
dancing.
say, yeah, country is not my genre. It's
Mhm.
very foreign to me. It's really not my jam, but I did really enjoy listening to this album, which
Good.
I didn't really expect because, again, I don't care for country.
Well, it's good songs and good melodies, right?
They do, and they have a lot of good kind of variation. I love the use of the fiddle. I love a good fiddle in a song generally. So
Yeah, they're kind of, that's one of the things I really loved. And country music, I'll try to limit the geekiness. Country music is basically a blend primarily of Scots-Irish traditional string band music and the blues, right? And I love it that they're doing the original instrumentation from the Scots-Irish, string band music. And there's plenty of times on the album where that's just a featured section, but then the whole thing still rocks. It's not like a mellow-ish acoustic album. And I was wondering, because I didn't know that they had any non-big label releases, but apparently they had three albums. This is their fifth album, and they're second on a big label. So I was wondering if those first three albums that were privately financed or on a small label was just the three of them as a like a oh my god, bluegrass group, you
hmm.
know, kind of more traditional. And that makes sense given that they're not writing a lot of their tunes right now. You can have a career and put out tons of albums in the bluegrass field and never write a song because there's a whole canon, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And so yeah, I love that part of it. Their backing vocals are pretty like right up there with just about anybody, right? And I don't get the I mean, that's real singing. That's 1999. It's not like auto-tuned to death. So I am pretty certain they're just outstanding live as well. So there's just a lot to like. And the additional thing for me is that they're from Texas, and it has that Texas flavor of country, which is I don't know how to explain it, but Texas is sort of like a sort of Gulf Coast and less sort of poppy mainstream country. And so the grooves are really good, right? It's not I mean, there are some typical country grooves on there, but there's like they're not afraid of leaning into the blues kind of groove kind of thing.
Yeah, I know literally nothing about country. I do love their cover of Landslide. Always loved that version.
Oh, the Fleetwood Mac. Is it acoustic or did they do it
It
with a
is
band?
acoustic, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would imagine they started out as an acoustic trio, and then when they got signed to the major label, then they got the budget for not only the posh recordings, but like, a band.
Hmm.
Because everything about them just screams, we started out as a sort of acoustic trio.
Well, and you can tell because they can play.
Yeah,
They are musicians, and they can sing. Man, these girls can sing like nothing. Like
absolutely.
the vocals on this album are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even when you're comparing them to other like country vocal groups, I mean, compare them to the Beatles, man. They're like that well in tune, and it's more than being in tune. It's also having a sonority where the voices blend. I think that two of the girls are sisters, right? They sure as heck look alike.
I have no idea.
I think two of the girls, the non-lead singer girls, I think are sisters or closely related. So that helps a lot, because there's something about when you have vocal harmonies within family members, if you get it right, there's like, can't be beat. And so they got,
Because they have
what
the
do you think about that?
different vocal tones, or this similar vocal tones.
Yeah, well, they are different. Otherwise, it wouldn't sound like two people singing, but they're
Right.
not so if you get it right, not every family member can harmonize well with each other, but when you get it right, it's just stunning. And that's probably what I'm hearing. And I should look up the name. Maybe the problem is they're married and they changed their name. So I'm just assuming, because the vocals, the backing vocals, and I'm sorry, let me say the harmonies are just pretty dang stunning. And again, when you're an acoustic bluegrass band having with a career and making albums, you got to lean into the virtuosity in terms of the instruments you're playing, and also those harmonies. That's just sort of the cost of entry, right? And then whether you can write songs is sort of like a secondary to that.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much I liked individual songs on this album. And I'm looking here at the Wikipedia page. They released 8 singles from this album. That's a crazy number of singles.
Wow, are there more than 8 songs on here? Is every song a single?
No, these are the singles.
There's what?
Oh, here's the track list. Yeah, there's 14.
Well, one of them isn't really that number 13. That ain't no thing but a chicken wing. That's not a real thing. It's 1 second.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. But look, if you like, so I can say if you look at the writers, I mean, maybe you can pull up the track listing on the feed for. Oh, you did. Sorry, I'm looking on the wrong screen. But these are some big Nashville writers. Matraca Berg has her own career as an artist. Mike Henderson is like one of the big time Nashville guitarists. Emily Robinson and Natalie, the Don't Waste Your Heart, that's 2 of the gals. And Anywhere There's Mains, that's probably Natalie. Jim Lauderdale and Buddy Miller. When I saw Jim Lauderdale and Buddy Miller, those people are badasses. Buddy Miller played in Robert Plant's album when he did that album with Alison Krauss. Did that ever cross your radar? The Robert Plant, Alison Krauss, they won a Grammy.
No.
Anyway, he played in Robert Plant's band, Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. Daryl Scott is big time. Patty Griffin was married to Robert Plant for like a minute, in typical, I guess, Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin style. But there's like big time singer-songwriters. So I'm sorry, there's big time songwriters on here, and they're apparently doing more than they did in the first album. So there's at least 3 tunes that, well, they all did co-writes. Nobody wrote solo from the band, but there's 3 tunes that they had a hand in writing. So that's pretty awesome. Maybe 4. I just don't know the girls' names. I should know that. But this is like, man, the minute I saw the Jim Lauderdale and Buddy Miller song, I go, we are going straight there to start.
I loved that song too, All in My Head. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites on this album would have to be Ready to Run. That's the first song on the album, but I really liked just the whole vibe of it.
Yeah,
I remember.
I love that too, but I watched on YouTube, and it has the video on YouTube, and the video is just kind of silly and goofy, and it was distracting to me, and I kept looking at it. But I did really like the song, but I just like was, please don't make me watch this. I
have YouTube Music, so I listened to the produced studio album.
Got it. And well, I mean, I was listening to the produced studio album on YouTube as well, but a person who posted it did, where they had a video, they would have the music video instead of just the album art.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it was like,
I know. I hate when they do that, because the music videos can often be very different from the recorded track. So
yeah, we have a budget. It's $19.99. It's like, okay. And then, so they have 4 co-writes. Marty Seidel, who co-wrote the first Ready to Run, is also a member of the band. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that song. I loved Goodbye Earl. Cold Day in July was very good. Some Days You Gotta Dance. And Hole in My Head. I liked all of them.
It's a lot of really, really good songs with really, really good melodies, right? And they're playing the snot out of them. They're just slamming. And apparently they had a huge rep as like in the late 90s of like, oh my God, something really cool and new and fresh from Nashville. But apparently they didn't start selling a ton until this record. They had an album before this on a major label that was sort of maybe more critically acclaimed, but didn't sell as much. This one sold a ton, hence releasing 8 songs from it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I remember when this album came out, hearing Cowboy Take Me Away just repeating over and over and over again on the radio.
Oh, really? Well, you weren't listening to country radio, so it's on pop radio.
No, it was on, yeah, I would just hear it around, like at malls or, on Muzak, or like, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently, where was it? Up here, commercial performance.
So it debuted at number 1. Hello. On 2 charts, the Billboard 200, which is the pop chart, and the Top Country. So that's like non-trivial.
Yeah,
that is a big deal.
They were big in, this era, 1999 to early 2000s. They were really big, probably the biggest country group. Well, and they were well known too outside of the country scene. So
yeah, and I think they crossed over. So I mean, I think people like Garth Brooks, I was reading there, people like Garth Brooks and LeAnn Rimes are selling more records, but not really outside of country fans. You know what I mean? So they were kind of crossover and big. And they were huge until the George Bush incident.
Yeah, I was definitely leading to that. I mean, we can't talk about the Chicks without talking about that, right?
Yeah. And I want to preface it with this and let you launch into that. So that was an offense to their audience on 2 levels, right? They, even though they're crossing over, they got a big country audience, right? And going after Republican presidents, not the way to ingratiate yourself to a country audience. And secondly, he's from Texas and they're from Texas. So they can't go to the grocery store, right? It's like, and they changed the name of their band I don't know if they changed the name of their band as a result, but
they did.
They got hammered in terms of their career, right?
Yeah.
They're still writing great music and they're still performing and they're still touring and stuff. But in terms of, their music selling a lot, they got really hammered in a way that I can't think of another situation where somebody took a political stance and just got pummeled.
Well, and this is one of the big instances that we cite of one of the first widespread iterations of cancel culture, as it actually exists, where they literally were blacklisted. So yeah. It kind of tanked them.
Well, within country, they weren't blacklisted by anybody outside of the country scene.
Well, no, but that's where the bulk of. I mean, if you're producing country music,
yeah, that's a big part of your base, right?
Yeah, I mean, I never went out and bought a Dixie Chicks album, so
yeah,
but yeah, they won the Grammy for Best Country Duo Group Performance in 2000. They had Ready to Run was featured on the Runaway Bride soundtrack. That's pretty big. It's a good day as a breakout group to have a song featured in a major motion picture popular release. So
yeah.
But and then in 2002, the album was certified diamond,
which is what, 10 million, a million.
Let's see.
I forget what that means.
It doesn't say. Let's see.
It's a lot. You don't hear about a
diamond,
lot of
10 million.
10 million. It is 10 million. That's big ass.
Yeah, that's beyond multi-platinum.
Right? Because I think platinum is $1 million, right?
Yep.
Or is it 2 million?
Platinum is $1 million. 2 million plus is multi-platinum.
Yeah,
diamond is 10 million.
How long did it take? When did they get diamond? What year?
2 years, in 2002.
That's moving. That is seriously moving along.
Yeah, so they were definitely launching into the stratosphere. And then
didn't the George Bush incident happen in England?
It happened in France. Yeah, I actually did some reading on this while back, because when I was interested in this particular incident, Let's see, can we find it?
It may not be on this page. There might be
it's not on this
page about it. But what's interesting about that is a lot of country acts don't tour internationally, right? They're just sort of U.S., right? Now, if you're going to tour internationally, England is a great place to do that because it's Scots-Irish folk music. The Irish and the Scottish love country music. I think the English do too, right? But that just tends to not come up on a lot of country bands' concert itinerary.
Yeah, so it looks
Elvis, even Elvis famously never left the U.S., you know?
Yeah, so March 2003. So this was after they went diamond and after all their awards and stuff. So they were riding high. And then made some comments about disagreeing with George Bush about the invasion of Iraq. And the funny thing about this incident was that it wasn't even during a time when like people were really consuming worldwide information. So, and it happened at a small venue in France on their world tour. And so it never should have reached the level that it did. But it was like the very beginning of like people carrying around smartphones with video capability. So somebody videotaped it at the concert. Yeah. And I think, the Guardian got a hold of it.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? Yeah. I mean, yeah. And what's interesting about it is they're talking about in that last paragraph for the background, they compared the incident to the backlash after John Lennon said the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. And there was a backlash, but the Beatles did not suffer in terms of record sale, even though people were buying records.
That was mostly a reaction in the US, and the Beatles were a British band. So,
but they made a lot of money and sold a lot of records in the US.
Sure.
And their careers weren't hurt the way the Dixie Chicks' careers were hurt.
Yeah. From what I was reading, and I don't know if it says so here, but I had done previous research on this incident, and it was like during the time when like no one in the US should have been reading The Guardian. Like people weren't really consuming worldwide news on the internet like they do now. It was very, very different time. And if you're watching and you're one of those kids who are younger than like millennials, then you just really don't have any concept of what the world was like before.
And that's pre-social media by like at least 5 years.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. So because it wasn't like being on social media, consuming information about the world every day, and like these things kind of getting passed around widespread all over the world and making it out of these little pockets wasn't really a thing. So from what I had read before, it like really shouldn't have made it back to the US, but it was the beginning of, the internet and things. And so somebody shared it in, I think, a country music forum or something. Mm-hmm. And then it just caught fire from there. And then they got canceled.
And I remember there was video. I mean, I didn't watch TV hardly at all, but I did see video of them saying that on TV. Mm-hmm. So it must have been everywhere if I caught it at all, because, I had a 6-year-old at the time. It was sort of like, wasn't watching TV.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I don't know if it was on TV but I definitely have seen the clip. Which, kind of made them, hi. It made them, it ingratiated them to me, even if it alienated them from their fans.
Yeah.
I joined in the middle of a conversation I have zero context for, but I would like to appreciate Beckett for taking over on this. I'm not feeling great and slept through an alarm.
Oh, no worries.
Feeling better.
I was brilliant for the first 15 minutes, and I've used all my material, so I apologize.
He's been nerding out about country music.
Ah, hell yeah. Because they kind of started as a bluegrass band, which is also kind of my roots.
Oh, I was guessing about that because they were just on this album getting into writing songs,
Barely.
I was assuming, yeah, barely. Well, there's 4 co-writes, so 4 songs that they co-write on. I was assuming their first 3 albums that weren't on the major label, they were an acoustic bluegrass trio. Is that right?
Yes, with 2 different members.
Oh, 2 different members.
Yeah, 2 different members.
Who's the one that survived from the first iteration?
So I think it was, let me see. One, I have my slides here.
Okay, I can stop.
I can just take over. So
anyway, and Becca and I were commenting on what great players, instrumentalists they are, and how their harmony vocals, backing vocals are amazing, which is something you have to do if you're a working acoustic trio in bluegrass.
Yeah, they have a lot of chops. So before this, they also Laura Lynch, who played bass, and Robin Lynn Macy were both on there. And
was Natalie the singer still, the lead singer?
No, I think Robin Lynn Macy was. Because
who's the person that made it to this current iteration of the band?
Yeah, because Marty McGuire, who is mainly the fiddle player, and Emily Strayer, I know that she plays the banjo and like a lot of the dobro stuff on this, they're sisters.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and then the third one joined in to Natalie Maines, who is the one who I think does mainly the vocals on this. She joined right before this album.
Yeah, she's the lead vocalist.
Yeah.
Pretty much. She is Texas, what do you call that? Her dad's a famous Texas musician. He plays pedal steel on this album. Lloyd Maines.
Oh.
He's a badass.
There's also an interesting point on this album where somebody plays a mouth harp for like 2 measures and no one's credited on it.
Are you serious? Oh, well, 2 measures.
Yeah, like I was just like, wait, there's a mouth harp on this? And then it never comes back. It was just there for like 2 measures, like as part of like a solo. And nobody's credited on it. I mean, I kind of wish they were.
Well, there you go.
So what sort of fun things did you guys get into?
Mostly we were talking about how surprised I was to have enjoyed this album, because I'm not a country listener. But I was familiar with the Chicks when they were around back when this album came out, when they were getting big.
My mom is a huge fan of this album, so listening to it was a lot of nostalgia.
Oh.
Yeah, I was saying my favorite songs there are 4 of them: Ready to Run, Goodbye Earl, Cold Day in July, and what was the other one?
Hole in My Head?
Hole in the Head, yeah.
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 My favorite song on this is actually Cowboy Take Me Away.
That's the one I was mentioning to Miguel earlier, was everywhere. Everywhere I went in 2000, it was playing.
So I actually...
It's a good song. I just object to the hook.
Yeah, and then I went to the grocery store and it was playing. Oh, yeah.
Rebecca, where were you living when your mom was listening to this all the time?
Mm-hmm. My mom is a huge country fan. So especially from this era, like she has every Garth Brooks album.
Oh, okay. Well, where was she living at the time? Were you in...
I wasn't living in Ukraine. I imagine...
This has a point. I just was curious.
I don't know. My mom grew up in Pennsylvania.
Oh, well, there you go.
So...
Never mind. But I was commenting earlier that they were on tour in Europe when the George Bush incident happened. And I don't know of a lot of big time Nashville acts that tour outside of the US. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they had a huge following. And it really kind of started with this album.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they lost all of their fans when they came out against George Bush and the invasion.
Yeah. Yeah, they were on, track to be like the biggest country music act ever when that happened. Like they had just gone diamond on this album, and which is having sold over 10 million albums. And they won a bunch of awards at the Grammys. Like they were launching their career.
Yeah, they also immediately after this got into a huge dispute with their record label.
Uh-oh.
And I think their record label stopped giving them the same writers that they were getting before. And yeah, like you can see on this list, they wrote more and more of their songs as it went on, to the point where Gaslighter, which is their album that came out like last year, which is their first album in 14 years.
Wow.
I think they wrote like 80 to 90% of it.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly more of it. So they've been like slowly writing more and more and more and more. But I think there was a huge dip in their sales after that. One, because their record label stopped putting money into them after like a lot of disputes with them. And then two, because again, they completely alienated their entire fan base.
Well, not their entire fan base. They alienated their country fan base. I think the crossover aspect of their appeal didn't go away. People who pop music that like them weren't going to leave them. It was just that they're kind of a country band. And the thing I was adding to it, just a cultural thing, is they're from Texas. So not only were they violating the rules of country music, they were speaking out against somebody from Texas.
The Texas president.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Texas has a president?
President from Texas.
Yeah. I have an uncle who's a politician in Texas and retired to be a lobbyist, as they all do. And I have George Bush stories that are really cool if we are really hurting for content towards the end. And it's an anecdote that's relevant to the times we live in. Anyway, that's called a tea. What did you think of the album, Rebecca?
So, like I said, this album has a lot of nostalgia for me, and I think that plays a huge role in it. But I think actually from a bluegrass perspective, it is like actually really on top of its playing, and like the way it uses like all of their vocals in one spot and the way it layers things. And it kind of does this weird thing for me that I was noticing on this listen, where they don't do a lot of solos, which are pretty popular in bluegrass. So instead, they just kind of repeat a phrase at the end until it ends. But a lot of what I like about their storytelling, especially for this one, is it's not a concept album. I mean, it's very clearly written by a bunch of different people coming in, but it definitely feels like a bunch of 20-year-olds just like leaving home for the first time and kind of just making a ton of mistakes along the way and fantasizing about what their lives could look like in the future. And I really like that.
Yeah, it's sort of thematically, how do you say? It has a theme to it.
Yeah.
About it being written by the same people. So that might have been, they were picking those kinds of tunes, or sometimes I know in the Nashville system, you can be asked to write for somebody. And so, maybe a couple of these songwriters, they were asked to write about them. They went and met them. They said, oh, okay, this is where they're at. I'll write something where the lyric kind of like lines up with that. So yeah, it's definitely a theme.
I brought the cover back up because Rebecca? I also
sorry.
No, I think that the theme also plays into like their album art, which is why I brought up the cover for it.
Yeah, it's 3 different butterfly wings.
Yeah.
It is? It's what?
It's 3 different butterfly wings.
And there's 3 Dixie chicks.
Oh, you mean it's like a photo of 3?
Yeah, they're photos of butterfly wings.
That's what butterfly. Wait, that's got to be heavily filtered. Natural sunlight, what a butterfly wing looks like. That's awesome.
Yeah. And interestingly, there's very little information
about the album cover.
About the album cover.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely noticed that right away when I looked at this cover, and it kind of makes me feel, because think about the time period which they released this in, and then it's kind of like them, and it's called Fly, and they're kind of flying off into fame, um, emerging from their cocoons to be beautiful butterflies, and there's 3.
Yeah. And I think it just thematically holds everything together.
Yeah. Yeah, about like the themes on the album with like branching out on your own and making mistakes and kind of finding your way.
Was that on purpose? I do not know.
Well, it's very apropos.
Hey, I just learned a really seriously geeky thing. My favorite song was Goodbye Earl, and the guy who wrote it also wrote one of Elvis's big hits.
Really?
Burning Love. Not like peak period Elvis hits, but like hits that sold a lot of records and got a lot of airplay. Hunka Hunka Burning Love. Well, there you go.
Yeah, look at that.
I was very impressed that a man wrote that lyric.
That is a great song.
That is the best. Wait, did you tell us your favorite, Rebecca? Did you have a favorite?
My favorite's Cowboy Take Me Away, but that's literally just for nostalgia reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that song, but the whole the hook, the Cowboy Take Me Away, I'm just like, eh.
Yeah, it kind of falls apart, but it has a nostalgia peak for me.
Yeah, and I bet you if that was one of the singles, which I'm assuming it was, probably one of their biggest sellers just because of that sentiment.
Yeah,
all the linked songs on this list are singles.
I actually have a list of them as well. So here's the list of all the singles.
Good.
Yeah, definitely an album at the peak time to put singles out into the world. I will say, like, songwriting wise, though, I like Let Him Fly the most, which is just a Patty Griffin song.
It is a beautiful song.
He's awesome.
So do with that as you will.
She's the best. She's really cool.
My favorite song on the album is kind of a cover from somebody else.
Well, so is mine. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't done an album where like all of the songs are written by somebody else, like this many writers in a room, because we don't really do a lot of pop. Mm-hmm. But
and when we did Taylor Swift, we did the one album that she wrote.
But especially with things along these lines, even when you look at it like later on, there's always like an extra writer on top of them, and a lot of times that's like an record executive that wants their name listed as a writer for royalties. That's a huge thing that like happens, especially in country music. You can't get it without like the producers being on there. And so when I was like looking at their later ones and seeing their names like appear more and more and more, it wasn't until Gaslighter that it was just their names. So it's also kind of hard to tell how many people wrote something, and especially in country music and in pop country.
Yeah, but there's a lot of bona fide big time songwriters on here, and I think the songwriting is really good. But there's also a culture in Nashville where you're just assuming you'll be asked to co-write with people, especially if you're a new artist. And in a way, it's kind of like adult supervision. You know, this song is great, it doesn't have a great hook, or this song is great, but we need a better bridge. And they'll either give it to someone, or they'll have the two people work together to quote unquote fix it or improve it, punch it up, you know? So that happens more in Nashville than that happens like in places like New York or LA or London.
Definitely not in LA.
Yeah.
I unfortunately didn't get to do a lot of research like on the background of writing these songs, and quite honestly, it was difficult to find information when I was looking. And I wish I had more information on how they were working together with it, because for the chicks, it kind of feels like there's no information until things start falling apart, and then there's a lot of information.
Interesting.
Like, I feel like because of all of like the chaos and controversy that kind of came out around them, it's kind of like taken over their actual skill sets, so that when people hear about it, they're just like, oh, pop country band, and don't think about the fact that these are 3 girls that like are incredibly good at their instruments.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate because, I mean, they are really incredible musicians.
Yeah,
and vocalists.
Yeah. I listened to Gaslighter, but I didn't fully listen to it, but it kind of also felt like it was their response to a modern day thing is what I remember. But I would love to go backwards in their like discography and like listen to some of their earlier stuff and like hear their actual like bluegrass chops.
Yeah, but it was different people, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah, it was.
Does anybody know why they switched members? Because I can imagine if you're really into bluegrass, having a big popular album like Fly may be like the last thing you want to do. And I wonder if it was just because of that. We got this big record label and we got this big contract and we need to do poppier songs. And I can imagine a lot of bluegrass musicians say, no thanks.
Well, I think even funnier, they actually had the members not for their previous album, so it's almost like they traded out members.
Yeah.
And then when they got the record label.
Yeah, maybe.
But it was really just Laura Lynch was playing upright bass on the albums beforehand. And then before that, there was actually a different person who just did vocals, and it was a 4-person. And so they lost their lead vocalist, and I always forget which one took over vocals. So she took over vocals, and it became like a huge hit.
Yeah, Natalie in the middle. She's the lead vocalist.
Okay, yeah.
The one on guitar right here.
Yeah. She's the one that is always kind of like the front face of when you think of the Dixie Chicks.
I know her face. I just always forget which name it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, she took over as the lead vocalist when they came onto a studio label, and I wonder if it had something to do along those lines.
Yeah, because they're 2 very different worlds. You know what I mean? You know.
Yeah.
Trade-offs and benefits to each, and you can have a career in each, but like there's not a lot of people that want to do both. And that was one thing that I mentioned to Beckett before you joined, was that I really like the fact that they combined the Scots-Irish string band instrumentation, the bluegrass stuff, with the pop stuff. So it's like there's cool bluegrass voicings and parts, and then it also just really, really rocks, right? You know, it's got great rhythm sections throughout.
I am a huge fan of Alison Krauss, and this feels like it's just like one more foot into the pop vein than Alison Krauss. Like, I feel like they're like so close together on the scale of like from bluegrass to pop.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, but Allison did go in that direction with the Robert Plant stuff that won the Grammys. It's just much more subdued. Much more subdued. It's much more subdued. Beckett, there's two songwriters on here. We're in Robert Plant's band, Buddy Miller and Patty Griffin. I don't know if it was the Alison Krauss band, but definitely in Robert Plant's band.
That was after Led Zeppelin, right?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, the kind of, he kind of has a really big band now, and at one point it was called Band of Joy, but it's like really diverse instrumentation. There's a equal amount electric and acoustic instrumentation, right? Whereas Led Zeppelin on albums was kind of acoustic and electric, but live it was pretty much electric. But anyway, there's some link to Allison there.
Yeah, in fact, if you listen to this album and enjoyed it even slightly, I would highly suggest checking out Alison Krauss.
She's got a new album out, doesn't she? I think she does. I saw some promos for it.
I can find out real quick.
It's it's her band is called Union Station, and then Jerry
Yes.
Douglas always sits in on dobro. So yeah, they have a new album out. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if she wrote all this stuff, but
Actually, Alison Krauss and Union Station has a new album out called Arcadia.
There
It
you go.
actually was released on March 28th, so
there you go.
it's out for a couple of months, and I have not listened to it yet because I am a bad fan of Alison Krauss.
Yeah, I got confused because the first thing I saw was Arcadia, and then all I could think of was the Duran Duran album. Like at one point, Duran Duran, everybody did solo albums, but then it went into two different bands, Power Station and Arcadia. And I'm thinking, why would Duran Duran do Arcadia again? But I found, it's not the band, it's the album name.
Yeah, I'm a huge sucker for anything that brings in like a banjo and a mandolin into like a more pop setting.
Yeah, I will say I am not a huge fan of this genre, and I don't think I would choose to listen to it again, but I did enjoy it while I was listening. So
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I did pick it, along with Paddington, which was our movie, was because I find that like we kind of put ourselves in a little hole a little bit, and like I'm trying to like pick songs and things that people want to talk about, and I'm like, no, occasionally we got to do something outside of people's.
Yeah.
yeah, my brain
Realm
gets
of knowledge.
stuck on one thing. Like I will listen to the same album for months.
You're not alone in that. So I really wanted to like break out of it, and I really wanted to do something that was very specifically pop country, and I was really happy to remember that this album existed because for a while I didn't.
Mhm.
But I had a lot of fun listening to it again, and really listening to the lyrics and realizing that they're all just kind of stories about like girls taking ownership of their lives, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it's in the most reasonable way.
Hey, how old? They were like not teenagers, but they were really young when this came out, right?
20
20
yeah, they would have been in their 20s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think about how in my 20s I thought I was so like knowledged and wizened, and I was such a baby.
Yeah, I
can
think they
imagine-
were all mid-20s when this album came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I was a real adult until like I hit 30.
Gosh, no. Yeah. I can't imagine being in my 20s and like launching into that kind of fame. That would be tough.
Yeah, that would be really messing with your head. Rebecca, I was going to tell you the first Dixie Chicks adjacent album I bought was one of the Natalie Main's solo albums.
Oh.
And I really liked it, and I'm trying to look it up. It's among the albums that Apple Music was so kind to lose for me.
So I think she only has one solo album.
Is it just the one? Oh yeah, Mother.
Yeah, it was produced by her and Ben Harper, interestingly enough.
I was gonna say that's the one thing I remember. Oh my God! And check it out. The Mother is the mother on Pink Floyd The Wall, right? Not a happy song about mom, but yeah, it was like she did a Sheryl Crow song. Charlie Robison is a big time Texas music artist that's married to one of the gals, not Natalie. I don't think he's married to Natalie. But just all kinds of a Neil Diamond song, an Eddie Vedder song, a Dan Wilson song, Robert Earl Keen. I mean, it's all over the place, but really cool.
It's really awesome also that, I mean, we were talking about how many songwriters there are on this, but they all very specifically sound like the Chicks. And when you have like this kind of instrumentation and this kind of like 3-person band, it's like definitely a performance aspect. Like they may not have been the writers on it, but I imagine these songs sounded way different with somebody else doing it. And I imagine they probably also did a lot of their own arrangement. And I think it's really cool to like watch all of these different songwriters and all of these different styles, because they do kind of do covers from all over the place when they do them. And yet they still so succinctly sound like the Chicks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have a very Yeah, they have a very consistent sound, and it really helps to hold the whole album together. Even though a lot of the songs are very different from each other, it all has a through line.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I was going to say about her solo album is the standout track was she covered something from the Jeff Buckley album. And that's just like slays the Lover You Should Have Come Over song. That's kind of the emotional peak of that solo album. Other than with the fact that she's covering Pink Floyd.
I actually will have to check out her solo album because I think as a vocalist, she's very impressive.
Yeah. And that was during the dark years after the George Bush incident. And the big news was that she cut her hair short. What qualified for news back in the early aughts, I guess, if you were big like that. But I guess if Taylor Swift did the same thing, we would be hearing all about Taylor Swift cut off all her hair.
Oh, yeah. No, I was about to say, didn't that happen to Joe Siwa?
I don't know. If you're a famous woman.
It was just like a child star who grew up and cut her hair short, and everybody was like, oh, my God. And she's like, no, she's like 22 years old now. Like, let her. She doesn't have to look like a child anymore.
Well, and
so that is still a lot of news.
Why are we paying so much attention to a woman's appearance? She can do whatever she wants with her hair. It's not news. Come on.
Yeah, but people will find any reason to do anything. The news is all clickbait, and it turns out it always has been.
Well, and especially if it gives them a chance to dig on women.
So, yeah, I actually am a huge fan of this album. It makes me very happy to listen to it. And that is that. We are coming up on an hour, so I know that I missed the first half of this, but was there anything else that anybody wanted to bring up?
I just think it's really cool. I did pay attention, or at least try to pay attention to the lyrics as I was listening through. And I think it's a really cool kind of theme of the album that it's so feminist. And I wouldn't expect that from a country group. But I mean, I do know that they are a little bit outside of they're a little bit counterculture when it comes to country. So
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think every single female in country music and folk is just pure feminism.
Well, show us how much I know about it.
So many men get murdered in country music, man. So many men get murdered in country music.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess I just don't know much about the genre.
Yeah. Despite its ties politically and all of its that thing, the lyrics are very much like, don't mess with me, I will get a shotgun.
Like, there you go.
Fair enough.
Earl has to die.
Yeah.
I looked at the haircut. She basically got a Morrissey haircut with the big quiff, right? Which kind of looks probably for 2005 pretty butch, you know? But anyway, I also wanted to add, and this is something I mentioned to Beckett, but like me being from Texas, this is Texas country. Even though it is very polished and, you know, it was done in Nashville and there's a lot of money behind it and that's not really a Texas thing. It's just got this, Texas country is a little, it's as much influenced by Gulf Coast culture as it is by country music culture. And for me, this is like, it sort of musically kind of like coming home, you know, because that's where I was born and raised. So it's a very Texas-y feeling album.
I'm trying to find the other country albums that came out during this time because I don't think there were a lot of people playing in this style. Like,
certainly not adding in bluegrass. Although there would be some artists that would, you know, might have started in bluegrass and went mainstream and pop, like Vince Gill, and maybe he would have a pop album and then like one kind of bluegrassy track, but it was like never going to be a single, and it was just kind of a throwaway that the label let him do.
Yeah.
But this is like, it's kind of consistently it's like there if you listen for, and a lot of times it's in the forefront.
I gotta say, I just looked up Natalie Maine's haircut, and the short hair looks really hot on her. She looks great.
She's got a couple different short hairs, but yeah, you saw the Morrissey one?
All of them. They look great.
Yeah, it makes her, like, it's a good look for her.
Yeah.
Looks great for her head shape.
But
Yes, he
like,
got.
but when you look at that short haircut, like think about Nashville in 2005. You think that's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
fly? Absolutely not. She looks gay. She's a lesbian. Ah.
Yeah. This was really the start of like pop country really becoming pop country. Garth Brooks, who was my initial choice when I was wanting to do this, only started recording like music and releasing them around 1990. And he is widely considered to be the start of pop country that sounds like this and like really mainstream on the radio, contemporary country as it sounds like it is now. So this was like, when I look at the albums released, there's some things that are very specifically in this like same vein. But it's still like is slightly ahead of the game. Like I feel like this album kind of shaped what contemporary country sounds like today. And as a funny note of what I found on here, Keith Urban played guitar
On this album?
on this album.
He did? I didn't see any credits.
And Some Days You Gotta Dance, he played Keith Urban. It actually like has a lot of cameos on it, but for some reason Keith Urban caught me by surprise.
Yeah. Hey, I did want to add one thing, unless we're over time.
We have 4 minutes.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We started a little late.
8 o'clock. So Taylor Swift really had nice things to say about her, quote unquote, inspiring her to be a female artist who is unapologetically creative, bold, and individualistic. She called them the most amazing group we had just because they talked about politics. So she thought a lot of them.
Nice.
Yeah. I also think a lot of them. I think that they definitely held to their own. And then I feel like kind of waited out the storm a little bit afterwards because they released an album last year, but that was their first album in 14 years. Like I feel like they just laid low for a little bit.
For quite a bit.
Yeah.
But they were touring, right? I got the sense that they just laid low in terms of the industry, but they were still working, or am I mistaken? Did they all go raise families? Leave?
I don't know. I don't know what their tour schedule was like.
Yeah.
But I think also knowing the problems that they went through, and I know that they also individually in their personal lives dealt a lot with the fame and kind of the fallout of being famous in general.
Yeah.
I think there needed to be like a recovery period. And I know that their most recent album is actually about Natalie Maine's like marriage dissolving. So maybe she was just like, I got rid of the man. Got to write an album about it.
I mean, as an artist, that's what you do, right?
Yeah. So I don't know what they were doing. Like I said, there's a lot of information on the chicks about like the controversies surrounding them, but not a lot of information about like background of good things.
Yeah.
Interesting. I will say I found a article on a gay magazine interviewing Natalie Maines in 2013 about her haircut. And she said she was inspired by Rachel Maddow.
It does look like Rachel Maddow's hair.
There you go. That makes sense.
All right. On that note, I think I am going to end the call for the evening. So thank you guys for joining me and starting the call without me when I was absent.
Thank you, Beckett.
And thank you, Beckett. And I hope to catch you again on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.